today I'll be focusing on the practice of our foundation in impact management and measurement. And well, first of all, I want to say that Навстречу переменам is working with social entrepreneurs or social purpose organizations, mainly who focus on working and supporting children. I placed the logo of Навстречу переменам Foundation just below the two cells Florian has already told about, to show that these are the two types of organizations that our foundation work with. So Навстречу переменам started to work with social purpose organizations striving for a sustainable business model. These are the startups on the very early ages, up to 3 years of operation, no more than 3 years of operation, who within the support that we provide, try to identify which path they are going further. So after the support we provide, some of them might stay where they are. Some of them might tend to become more fundraising orientated and go a little bit to, to the left. And some of them might tend to become more business orientated, I mean, in terms of business model, of course, and go a little bit to the right. So today I'll be focusing on this program that supports social entrepreneurs on the early stages. But just to go a little bit to the side, I want to say that last year we, together with our partners, launched a new program, a new for Russia, that is called Reach for Impact Investment. And this program supports social purpose organization with proven business model who is aiming to scale their businesses and is reaching for traditional investment for that. And our goal in this program is to connect them with investors with impact, and to make this investment to be done for further scaling of the organizations. But this is just for your information. And now I will back on these social purpose organization at their early stages of development. And I'll be talking about Incubator Program that is helping such organizations. So in Incubator Program, we provide funding and we provide non-financial support. Non-financial support consists top level from capacity building, from network connection, and we also try to promote our participants. And of course, that gives them participation in the program, gives them stamp of approval. And our non-financial support is actually one of its main focus is helping the organization to build their own system of management and measuring impact. To do so, we use this simple framework that you see on the screen. Well, I guess that the majority of you are familiar with it. It's called the theory of change. Here you see it also on the top level, and you see the definition of impact, how we define it in our organization, and how we try to transfer this definition of impact to our participants. So I'll just give, just in case, a very, very quick recap on this theory of change so we would understand each other better in continuation of my presentation. So, well, initially, as you know, everything starts from the right side, but for simplicity, I'll start from the left side. So when we put some resources in our project and we do certain activities for achieving impact, it leads to certain outputs. The extent to which your activities were implemented, which is, for example, the amount of children supported, the hours you spent on something, the amount of classes you provided, something that you can count, and that is not yet an impact or an outcome. These outputs lead to certain outcomes, which are the changes that are happening in our beneficiaries' life or in our stakeholders' life. And these changes, a part of these changes become the impact. That part that was, that happened due to your intervention. And our goal when we built management and measuring system is to identify each of these elements and to isolate impact out of outcomes, which is, as I think many of you know, not that easy. So we'll be talking about today for our foundation, for Навстречу Переменам Foundation, and for how we helping to build that system for our change leaders or SPOs. So here you see the theory of change, the model for our foundation. I'll not be talking in detail about it because we don't have time, but this is a top level theory of change of our foundation. You can see here that our long-term outcome is for the organizations, for our alumni to survive, first of all, to sustain and to scale. We expect at least 80% of our alumni to survive, and at least 30% of them to scale geographically in different regions and different cities of the country. We understand for this to happen on a short term, as a short-term outcome, when the organization are yet at their early stages, it's very important to provide them with the support so that they can prove their impact. They can understand their business model and identify it, and they can build a strong team. They can further carry the organization. So today we'll be talking about how we build the system you see here, which indicators and which results we received. And I just want to emphasize that we're doing it as we are investors for impact. We're doing it not only for transparency reasons, not only for understanding our own efficiency, but we're also doing it as an investors. These results are a part of the criteria that we take into considerations when we make up decision about investment and reinvestment into the project. Here, what I mean, participants of our incubator program can participate from 1 year to 3 years. And each year we make up a new decision. Someone is writing on the screen. Maybe that's a mistake. If you can change it right now. So, sorry. So I was saying that we support entrepreneurs from 1 year to 3 years, and each year we make up decision about reinvestment, taking into considerations the data I'll be talking today. So let's move on. Okay, so here you can see top level our stakeholders. I'll not be talking in detail about it. As Florian said, that's very important to identify your stakeholders, to understand their expectations. Here, I just want to say that as I see our strengths is understanding our SPOs expectations, our partners and board expectations. This is where our strength is. Because of close relationships, we are building it and integrating these SPOs, partners and board into our activities, selection processes, and so on. I would say that our limitation by far is better understanding the children itself, to have better direct connection with children, understanding their expectations, their needs, and their problems. This is where, as a foundation, we can improve. We have the development area. So after understanding identifying your stakeholders, we can move on to the system itself and the data itself. So let's take a look. Here you see, I want to say that the data that we receive from our SPOs can be divided in two types. First type is the data on the development of SPOs themselves, SPOs, social purpose organizations. So this data could be around certain outputs. It could be around short-term outcomes, which is top level is how it is about increasing capabilities of social purpose organizations. And on the long-term outcome, this is, as I said, survival rate and scaling of our alumni, right? So the second type of data that we receive from our SPOs is the data received on children and youth. So this is our outputs, the number of children and youth supported, and outcomes. They come from theory of changes of our SPOs, and they show how the lives of children and youth is improved, changed, or protected. right? So let's talk in detail about, we will talk in details about outcomes, short-term and long-terms, and we will not be talking much about outputs just because we don't have time, even though that's also very interesting. So let's talk about short-term outcomes that we have on SPOs. These outcomes, as I said, strengthening their organizational capabilities, and we divide this strengthening in 5 different areas. You see here: effective solution, financial sustainability, leadership and team, impact scaling, system change for some of them. So to understand how SPOs develop for each of these areas, we have certain milestones and certain tool that captures these milestones. So the milestones are the certain procedures or results that within each area SPO is achieving. For example, for effective solution, this could be theory of change in place, one milestone, or this could be indicator of that captures outcome results is set. This could be the research is made, the first results are received. So something like that, something that is showing the development within the area. For financial sustainability, this could be milestones like, sales system is tested, or business model is proven, or financial planning is done, right? So, and so on. Such milestones we have for each area. Here on the right side, you see the visualization, the example of it, of how these results are represented, right? So the pink line is the initial milestones that our participants have before they started participation in the program. The dark blue line showing the planned results by the foundation, by us, that we want them to have by the end of the year, for example. And the blue line is showing the actual results received by the organization by the end of the year, right? So this representation is showing us the development from the initial point, and the gap the results have towards the planning results. And you can also see here the results on the screen. You can also read that. For example, for 2020, our results were a little bit less than we expected, that we connect with possibly some planning mistakes, or maybe COVID reasons as well. So here, I just want to emphasize that here, the indicator that we use for measuring is the amount of milestones reached by our change leaders. Another indicator that we use to measure the outcomes around these 4 areas are listed here. These are, we count increase in multiplicity of the outputs we ask from our change leaders. So, for example, we ask to provide us data on the amount of children and youth supported in previous period before our foundation, came by, on staff and volunteers, income and outcome, geographical footprint, and we measure these outputs also by the end of the periods we work with. Then we compare, we count the dynamic, and we have this general understanding of how the dynamic was in general for our participants. This is very hard to plan beforehand because the actual results differ a lot on the constitution of our participants of the project. But what we noticed is that, for example, on average, the number of children supported would be increased at least by 2 times. The staff supported would be increased by 2 times at least. And on the right side of the slide, you see that the actual result by the end of the last year. And it shows that our planned results, are met, our expectations are met, and in some ways are overreached. But here I want to say that this is very individual. I would say that this type of data gives us information for representations. This is not always used for making up decision about reinvestment, but it gives us a more full picture, a fuller picture about the development of our change leaders in general. So now let's talk about outcomes on children. These outcomes, as I said, capture how the life of children and youth were improved. So from our participants of the first year, we expect at least qualitative information about how the life of children improved. And we ask them to capture it through impact stories on children that represent, the story of this child, how his problem was solved, what changed after the contribution of the project. We ask it as a report, as a part of the report that they provide us, our participants provide to us 3 times a year. You can see that, the results gain, they almost met our expectations. Around 64% of participants provided us the quality stories, which we are almost happy about. And on the right side, you see that from the participants of the second and third year, we expect not only quality of information, but also, the research information, the actual indicator results of their outcomes that are showing how exactly, to what extent the life of children and youth were improved, supported, changed, and so on. We expect at least 80% of our second and third year participants to provide such data in a quality way. And for example, for the last year, 3 or 4 participants have done it, did it, and the first couldn't because he didn't start the operation yet. I think, I'll skip some parts just to make sure I'm in time. As for long-term outcome, as I already said, we expect at least 80% of our participants to still be in business. And right now we're happy about the results that we have. 81% is still in business. And the majority of our alumni, they continue to grow and continue to reach more children, which we're also happy about. So now I want to move to a new part. And before moving, just to put this question, I told you about certain results very briefly. I told you about the outcomes, the data that we received, but how do we know that these results were contributed in any way by our interventions? Because this is the development of the organizations. Organizations, they work themselves, they develop themselves, many different things happen to them, many other contributors influence them, and so on. So it's not that I have an ideal answer, but there are some things that we're doing in the foundation that help us to get closer to that answer, let's say like this. So, for example, for alumni, when we ask them to tell us about their condition, we also ask them to estimate how they think, to what extent the contribution done by our foundation has influenced their development. And here we see the answers. Yes, so we see that most of them think that there was an influence done by the organization. I think I'll skip to be in time. For example, let's see, 90% of our participants of the last year report that they would have developed less without incubator. And 60% of them think that this contribution of our organization was at least significant. Around 90% of our participants of the last year think that our foundation has contributed to increasing effectiveness for children and youth, and also for increasing reach for children and youth. Around 70% here on the left side, you can see around 70% think that the contribution on effectiveness was at least significant. For us, these results, we kind of very happy about it. We also, while seeing it, understand where we need to improve, where we can maybe put more effort on, right? But that gives us an understanding of the influence that we have on the change leaders. a part of these anonymous surveys that we do to understand the contribution of our foundation and to isolate our impact, there are some other ways that we also carry out. For that reason, first of all, these are the interviews that we carry out with alumni and participants. Our limitation here is that we carry out these interviews by internal forces. So this is something that is done by team members, which is not that good. It's better to be done by someone external. And also we do a competitive analysis researches and try to compare data from different resources. It has also many limitations because it's not easy to find the organization that work exactly with our target group or exactly by the methods that we use and so on. But still, this gives us additional information on isolating impact, which is very important in the whole process of impact measurement and management. So I want to summarize my presentation and say that to build such system of impact measurement and management is not something, fortunately or unfortunately, it's not something that we can do, chaotically or segmentarily. This is something that needs to be put in the operational, operational things. Something which is done, day by day. That means, for example, for us, that there is timing and for every data set and analysis that we get, that there is, we divide. We have several program managers, and we divide our responsibilities on who is doing what. There are some data that is collected quite regularly. For example, impact stories or growth indicators are a part of a reporting system that has deadlines, that is strict, and so on. And some data is more tailor-made, more individuals in scenarios like theory of change, like indicator setting and strategy establishing, right? So this is all, I'm showing you all this to understand that this system is, very flexible and takes time to be put into your everyday operations. Yeah, I think I'll be finishing. Sarah, yeah, I can.
Thank you, Sophia. You need a few minutes.
Go ahead. I'm good. I'm good.
Thank you. That was very interesting, and we know it's not easy to shrink into only 15 minutes a presentation of so many interesting processes and learnings. I have prepared some questions for you, but I would really encourage the audience to plug in their questions or considerations. I know many of you probably have an experience with impact measurement, so we are happy to share insights here. I have a question for you on proportionality, because you said at the beginning that you have programs for startups and a program for more grown company that are at very different stages of development. So one of the principles of impact measurement probably goes with, I'm just looking at the slide. It's actually to consider the stage of development and the capacities of the social enterprises you're dealing with, not to overburden the investee or incubees. And then, so we wanted to know what are your considerations. So what type of data and expectations you have in impact measurement, considering the different stages of development of the organizations.
Do you want me to, differentiate it for these two programs, or just within different stages of?
Yeah, whatever makes sense to you. I think it's interesting to understand if, considering the stage of development of the organization, you as a founder or a support organization have different types of expectations.
Yeah. I would say that there is for Incubator Program, there is a certain set of data that I was just showing on my last slide that we expect them to have by the beginning of the year and by the end of second or third year or first year in the incubator. But I would say that there is a different amount of work that is put to get this information. So for example, for participants on the very early stages, this could take a longer time to establish theory of change or to establish the indicators itself. For the organization that already exist and have some operation experiences, this can differ a lot, but this could be easier because they understand each other more. They might have more strength in their resources that they can put into impact measurement and management. So I would say that in the incubator program, it's unified in terms of the data that we expect, but it's very individual and very tailor-made in terms of the amount of resources that we put into work with each SPO individually.
Yeah, thank you. This is something that is interesting to see how you tailor-made the expectations in terms of what type of data and how much rigorous is the data collection and analysis according to the different capacities of social enterprises. I have also a question for you on setting targets. You have this very interesting development tracker system, which at EVPA we have been studying for quite some time because it's really innovative, we think. And I wanted to ask you, how much do you negotiate and customize the indicators with the different social enterprises, and or if you have portfolio level indicators that, you know, information that you collect through all your portfolio. So here, the different milestones, they are the same for all the organizations, or you you negotiate and organize the milestones according to the different
I got
social enterprises.
So the tool has the unified milestones, so they are the same for all organizations, but the development tracker, filling in is always done with program manager. So setting milestones is done with program manager, revising is done with program manager, and within this setting and revising, it's always customization of each preset milestone to unique situation that the organization has. So due to this individual support, it could be done this way.
Thank you. This was very interesting, and these slides will be shared in the website. We think that this is really a great example to be inspired from. I have a difficult question for you, but feel free not to answer. This is because we like to speak about impact management. So not only impact measurement, collecting data, but also managing the impact, which makes an organization really learns from data and improve their impact decisions. So where to put the money or what to put the efforts, what type of organizations to support in order to maximize your limited resources.
Yes.
So the question here stays with negative impact. Did it ever happen in your experience that you have a social enterprise that is not going into the good direction, that you get these insights from your impact data? And did you ever took action in order to actually change the things you were doing or improve the program, or I don't know, change your strategy?
Yeah, of course that happens. That happened. We had several participants that, for example, didn't show us the results that we expect them to show. And as I said during my presentations, all of this management and measuring system is done also to get additional information of whether we want to reinvest during the year or from year to year. So yes, that happens. This system is, as I said, one of the reasons that is showing us that something is not working. Also, there are some other indicators. So you can just observe how the organization works even without all of this system, and this is also an additional information for you. But yes, this system like this helps you to understand that something is going wrong. I would say that if we didn't have such close individual contact with the organizations like we have, and we only had analyze information from the reporting, that would be even more essential, because we would see the outputs, the outcomes, the data, and that would give us something that we can get concerned about. Yeah, Does it answer
Yes, it
your
does.
question?
Thank you. Yes, it does. We think it's a very interesting system, the one to ask your investee or guarantees the supported organization how much they value your support. So like to assess the contribution that the foundation is offering to them by asking them through qualitative interviews as well as through collecting data. This is a very useful exercise because it's somehow simple to implement. You can do it, you know them, and you can ask information, and this already gives you quite some relevant information. I also wanted to ask you about practicalities. So when you say we collect the impact stories 3 times a year, or you collect data, what systems do you have in place? Softwares, complex systems, they send you emails, how this work in practice?
This is a very good question. This system was initially and still is managed by our colleagues from Reach for Change. And this is done actually through Google Forms that have certain organizations that allow us to collect this data. And these are Google tables. This would be more correct to say. Google tables that have information reporting system that enables us to collect the data. But here I want to say that there is a lot of effort of our program manager, who is managing also quite individually the system of collecting this data. This is also a resource that goes together with forms that we have.
Yes, this is, I think it's very relevant for those who need to start a system. Sometimes we think we have to set in place very complex systems, and you can also start just by sharing an Excel file at the beginning, and this can be more than enough to have a start. One of the final questions, because then we have only 5 minutes left, but is on the commitment of the board and the management level, how important it is to have the buy-in of different levels within the organization. So is there an exchange that you have within the organization? How this impact practice is shared within the organization as a learning tool, but also as a part of your strategy?
Yeah, so we, as the majority of organization, at the end of the year and the beginning, let's say, of the new year, prepare the reporting. That's an annual report that many NGOs have, and our foundation as well. And of course, there is a certain campaign connected to how this annual report is distributed, and it is also distributed within the team, to the board, to main partners. There are some events connected to how to report and talk about these results, and this is what is done at least once a year during the this campaign. A part of that, there are several events that we have during the year to which we can provide the necessary information for our board and for our partners. There is also a demand that can come from them, where we can prepare additional information and provide for them. Here, I would say that here it's a system on the one hand, and as well as with how we work with our SPOs, that's also very individual. If there is a demand, we would go for a new information, for new settings prepared for our stakeholders.
Thank you. And then a question on what do you think it's the most relevant support that you can offer social enterprises? I mean, considering the whole incubation, acceleration, support on defining impact measurement indicators, what does really makes the difference in supporting those type of social entrepreneurs?
Sarah, I don't think I understood the question.
Sorry, where do you think they put most value? It's the connection with your network, if the expertise you share with them, or capabilities on the financial side. If you had to say, what is really relevant for social entrepreneurs to grow and build capacities.
Yeah, that's a tricky question. That's a question that we negotiate around, like, I don't know, all the time. We have many, disagreements and agreements and all of that. That's very tricky. And we ask our alumni what was the most significant for them, and actually the most popular answer is the complexity, that all of that is important. You know what I mean? That even when we ask them, it's hard for them to take one thing or choose one thing. They say that the complexity gives it all in general. So I think that our force is to give it as a complex, and it would differ from the person what is more relevant for it, but he might not understand it at the time. So that's very tricky question. It's hard to investigate. We don't have a direct answer. So my answer by now is the complex of things.
Yes, but this is, I think, already very interesting, that organizations also need to understand how the ecosystem works at large, and all that the things that are requested, not only specific items. Okay, and then a final question on an advice. If an organization has to start an impact measurement system from the very beginning, where would you advise them to start with?
I don't think I have a very interesting answer. I would say that if not to understand the motivation, why you need it, how you will use the results, to be realistic about understanding your resources, how much resources you can put into it, and whether you need to prioritize it, I don't know, this year, or maybe it's better to do it next year. So I would start with these questions, because when you answer them, the rest is to be done.
And do you have problems in having social enterprises committed to provide you data on impact measurement to understand importance? Is it something that you need to explain and convince them somehow, or they are very happy to be part of the program and this is enough for them to contribute?
I think the majority of them are happy to be in the program. I think that some of them still experience some process while reporting, because for them it could be additional, how to say, force in English, nagruska.
Burden, it's time commitment. Yeah.
This could be a new burden for them. But when we ask the alumni, or when we ask participants, not during the year, but at the end of the year, many of them value the necessity of it. We understand that if it wasn't for the reporting, maybe many of them wouldn't report. So I think it's important to keep it as a report, even if at the moment there is a burden and feeling that it takes your resources. For some of them, this could be not super relevant, but I think for majority of them, and they are at the early age, that's kind of very important.
Thank you very much. It was a very nice conversation, the one we had. I think we can close it now. I think there is a voice in the background, probably. Maybe it's me. Anyway, thank you very much, Sofia, for being with us. It was really very, very interesting to speak with you. And your case is, I think, one of the most interesting best practices we've ever seen at EVPA. So we really are happy to share this experience with our audience, because it can give so much inspiration to those that need to start an impact measurement system. These slides will be shared, and feel free to reach out if you have other questions. I'll leave the floor to Florian. Thank you. Thank you very much for taking the time. And I'll leave the floor to Florian for the last conclusion words.
Yes, just very briefly, because I see Eva is here already as well on the panel. I just would like to thank all the speakers of today for sharing their expertise, their insights on these three core practices that are really at the core of EVPA, of our members. And I also would like to stress that this is part of being at EVPA, really to share and to learn from each other. And we are particularly happy also to be part of this project, Collaborate for Impact, to extend our borders, so to say, and then to be more inclusive and more truly European. So thanks everybody for the presentations, and thank you also for the participants. But before any farewell words, I will hand over right away to Eva, who will introduce you what comes next and how we close this day today. So Eva, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sarah, Florian, Sophia as well. You are disappearing, but actually I had a question and I couldn't put it in the Q&A because I was curious to hear, as we are working on the supply side, and the aim of this project as well is to mobilize businesses, corporations, companies, but also individual entrepreneurs, business entrepreneurs, to engage and to support social enterprises. I wonder whether your impact measurement approach, whether you see that your funders, because I know that Navsтреча Переменам has actually corporate funders as well in Russia, do they appreciate the fact that you are doing this impact measurement? Are they more convinced to support you because you have the data, right? You are a capacity building organization. So if you could just comment on that. I mean, Florian took always more than 50 minutes, so I can have this last question as well.
Yeah, thank you a lot for the question. When you asked it, I think that's a good idea to ask them directly, because now I can say my thoughts. But I think that it put into my mind that it's just important to ask them directly to understand it better. I think that our partners, they already used to us for having this information, for sharing this information. So I think they think that that's how it has to be done. So I don't really know if it's an appreciation is the feeling that they feel, you know, or their thoughts that they have. But I think that's kind of the minimum requirement, or they expect from us to be shared, something like that.
Yeah, I think that's important, right? Because I think there is a role also for all the organizations, the capacity building organizations. We have many of them on the as the audience of this conference, to educate also our donors and sponsors and investors, right? So that they don't stop at measuring just the results, right? The outputs, but they really move forward.